Welcome, everyone. We're diving right into a special case study analysis today, something that's incredibly relevant for your GS3 paper, the recent boat tragedy in Mathura. We're going to break this whole thing down from a disaster management perspective. So let's start with this image. It really sets a powerful scene, doesn't it? You can see the rescue boats out on the water, the anxious crowds on the banks. It just perfectly captures that sense of urgency, the sheer scale of the response you need when a disaster strikes with almost no warning at all.
All right, here's our game plan. We'll use a 5-part framework. We'll start with the incident itself, dig into the causes, look at the rescue and relief efforts, and then, the most important part, we'll pull out the key lessons for your exams.
Okay, part 1. Let's lay the groundwork and establish the fundamental facts. What exactly happened on that fateful Friday afternoon in Mathura?
So let's get specific. We're talking about a boat filled with devotees from Punjab. It capsized right there in the Yamuna River in Mathura. Now, right away, this should set off alarm bells about a key vulnerability, and that's our reliance on these informal, often totally unregulated transport systems at religious sites.
Now for the really interesting part of our analysis, breaking down what caused this. And as you're about to see, this was no act of nature. This was through and through a preventable, man-made disaster. The boat was carrying around 30 passengers, and while we might not know its exact official capacity, eyewitnesses and officials all point to one primary cause: severe, dangerous overcrowding.
And the direct result of that overcrowding? A tragic loss of life. At least 10 people were confirmed to have died, with 18 rescued and a search still on for others. It's just a stark, heartbreaking reminder of the human cost of negligence.
So here's the crucial takeaway. This wasn't just one thing going wrong. It was a classic cascade of failures. Think of it like dominoes falling. First, you have the initial problem, the overcrowding. Then, that problem is made worse by a physical event. Bam, it collides with a pontoon bridge. And to top it all off, you throw in some bad weather, these gusty winds, and you have a perfect storm for a tragedy. Let's shift gears and look at the response. How did India's disaster management framework actually kick into gear on the ground? How did the system react when this all went down? This table illustrates it beautifully. It shows that structured, multi-agency approach that's really the backbone of our disaster response. You see, you have the local police and divers acting as the immediate first responders. Then they get support from the specialized teams, the SDRF and NDRF, for the tougher search operations. All the while, you've got the civil administration coordinating everything and medical teams taking care of the survivors. It's a well-oiled machine. And having senior leadership on site, people like the district magistrate and the DIG, is absolutely critical. Why? Because it ensures clear command and control. It helps cut through any red tape and allows for quick, decisive actions right where they're needed most. But remember, the response doesn't just stop when the search is called off. Now we're going to look at the equally critical relief and coordination phase. This is all about supporting the survivors and the families of the victims. When you see statements from national leaders like the Prime Minister, they actually serve two purposes. Of course, they express national solidarity, but just as importantly, they act as a signal that triggers the national-level relief mechanisms, focusing the full attention of the government on the incident. And right on cue, you see the announcement of financial relief, what we call ex gratia, from the Prime Minister's National Relief Fund. This is a key part of post-disaster management. It provides immediate financial support to families who are grappling with incredible loss and injury. Now this is a textbook example of interstate coordination, a really vital topic for your syllabus. Think about it. The disaster happened in Uttar Pradesh, but the victims were from Punjab. So you see both state governments working together seamlessly. UP is managing the on-the-ground relief, while Punjab is setting up control rooms and sending its own teams to help its citizens. It's a perfect illustration of our federal system in action during a crisis. Finally, let's wrap this all up by distilling it into actionable lessons. As aspirants, this is the most important part, connecting the dots from this specific case to the broader principles of disaster management.
So these takeaways cover the entire disaster management cycle. On prevention and mitigation, we clearly need stricter rules and better enforcement for these boats. For preparedness, maybe we should have SDRF teams already in place near vulnerable spots during big festivals. The response itself? Well, it proved our multi-agency model works, and the coordination between UP and Punjab was a standout example of effective federalism.
And that leaves us with the big policy question, the kind of thing you might have to tackle in your exam. What systemic changes are really needed? in licensing, in enforcement, in public awareness. How do we finally shift from just reacting to these tragedies to actually preventing them from happening in the first place? Definitely something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me for this analysis.